In this video, I'm painting a realistic Black Panther eye with oil paint. But here's the thing. I'm not allowed to use any black paint. Let's jump in. Hey, welcome back. My name is Danny, a wildlife artist with a love for all things nature and things just a little bit weird. Now, if you've been in the art world for a while, you might have heard some artists grumbling about black paint, saying it's boring, flat, and lifeless, all that jazz. And you know what? I completely agree, yet I find myself often falling into that trap of just grabbing that tube of black paint, mostly out of sheer laziness, and then, unsurprisingly, being just a little bit disappointed with how the darkest parts of the painting looks. So let's change that, shall we? So the first thing I wanted to do is do a sort of comparison between the black that I could get straight from the tube, so in this case I'm using ivory black, and different blacks that I can mix. So the colors that I'm using here are going to be Prussian blue, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, and a little bit of burnt sienna. This gives me a really nice range in colors, so you can mix your own black that's going to match your painting. So this first one here, starting off with a bit of burnt umber and Prussian blue. So with each color, I'm going to start off by putting just a little bit of ivory black down here so we can actually see a true comparison of the different blacks. And now I'm going to go ahead and swatch my next one. So this is our combo of burnt umber, Prussian blue, and as you can see, there's definitely a heavy blue tone in there, but it's still super dark. I'm not quite sure if this is the vibe I want for my painting yet, so I'm going to keep mixing and see what other tones I can get. So here I'm adding a little bit of alizarin crimson to that previous mixture. And as you can see, that alizarin crimson is quite powerful. So it's definitely shifting it to a much more purple vibe, which I personally love. I think is gorgeous. Not sure if it's going to match this painting, so let's keep mixing. So here I'm just going with a little bit more of that original mix, kind of taking it a little bit more of a blend between the bluer black and that purplish black to see what I get. And finally, I'm going to be adding a bit of burnt sienna here. My hopes are that this is going to make a more neutral black with a little bit of a brown tone to it rather than it being super blue forward or purple or red forward. So here you can really see the difference in these tones that you're going to be able to blend. And I love this because it gives you so much flexibility for matching your dark paint to your subject in a really gorgeous, rich way. So here's our little lineup of our swatches. On the very left, that's where we have our pure ivory black. And as you can see, it is pretty boring compared to the other ones, just very gray toned. And then we've got a really nice blend of other tones. So I think the second from the right is the most neutral. And this I think is a pretty even blend between our Prussian blue, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, and our burnt sienna. So it kind of gives us that nice blend. I would say this is still a very gorgeous, rich black, but it's got more personality than just that pure ivory black. Let's get painting. So here I'm starting off by working in my darkest parts. So the pupil, a lot of the dark flesh around the eye, and just a lot of that dark shadowed black fur. I'm going in with rough brush strokes here, but I want to get that really punchy contrast in right off the get-go. So starting with my darkest darks. Laying those in here pretty thick. I'm going to be working several layers into this painting. So going to be starting with my underpainting and then doing some glazes to really be able to dial things in after. So with this underpainting, my primary focus is going to be values, building up detail, all that good stuff. Worrying less about color because I know I can really play with that more once I work into my glazes. But so yeah, here I'm basically focusing on building up really good values, structure, form, and also some detail, all while not using black. And honestly, even just by judging what I see on the camera here, I can't tell that I'm not actually using black paint, but in person, it looks so much more rich and vibrant and still black. So it really is true what they say, like using black paint straight from a tube, yes, is convenient. And I'm not saying never do it, but you can get such better results if you mix your own, and it's really not hard at all. So my favorite brush shape of all time is a filbert brush. So it's got nice long bristles. They're kind of worked into a plane that gives you both a knife edge and some broad bristles. And the bristles themselves are kind of rounded at the tip. And the reason why I love this brush shape is because it is so versatile. Here, I'm basically just using one single brush, and it's a pretty big brush, but yet I was able to work in some tight fur detail, some detail in that iris, a little bit of texture in the highlight in that sort of flesh under the eye, using the same brush, just because this brush is so versatile. I can use the knife edge of my brush like you see here to add some fine individual hairs, or I can use the broad side of the brush to cover large areas, or the broad side of the brush with a really light hand and almost use that to build up some fur texture like you see me doing right here. Favorite brush shape of all time, highly recommend it always. So I'm starting to wrap up my underpainting here, really happy with the way things look. I'm really excited to jump in with glazes because I'm going to be able to add more contrast and add some really gorgeous color. But yeah, I'm just kind of working in some final details here into my underpainting, and then I am going to be letting it dry completely before glazing. And honestly, I can't even tell that I didn't use black paint here. I love the way this looks so far. So let's see it transform with glazes. So for my glaze, I'm going to be using Liquid Original by Winsor & Newton. Favorite glazing medium of all time. Cannot recommend it enough. And what I'm doing here is I'm essentially mixing up a shadow glaze, two different kinds. One that is going to be more brown tone, like you can see I'm applying here, and the other one is going to be more blue. So the blue one is going to be helping to add some of that atmospheric color to those highlights of that dark fur, and having the brown glaze is just going to add a bit more earthiness to it, a little bit more of a natural look. And then with the eye, I'm also going to be going in with my different colors here. So I've got a little bit of yellow, adding a little bit of Prussian blue to kind of give a gorgeous greeny tint to that eye, and just adding glaze where I want to add some more color. And the final step for any painting I do is to work in a couple last minute details into that wet glaze layer. I love doing this because it makes it a little more subtle, and it's just everything's so smooth because you're already working into that wet layer. So wherever I see fit, just adding a couple last minute details and highlights to really make things pop. So the finishing touches are going on the painting, and then I'm going to put it aside for a few days to dry completely before doing the most satisfying step ever, varnishing. So here I'm using Gamvar by Gamblin. I love this varnish. And big brush, pour it on. Oh, just look how juicy that looks. Gorgeous. It never stops being satisfying. It just brings out those colors, makes everything look so rich. And because some paint has a tendency to sink into the surface, brings everything back up and shiny. Overall, I love the way this turned out. I think those blacks look super rich and dark, not at all flat and lifeless like I would have gotten just by using black paint. And it was actually really, really easy to mix these. So I highly recommend you playing around next time you're using black paint. Try adding some colors in there. You might be surprised. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.